have had a very good year, lots of exciting things. I had a baby, and as of August the 5th, I finally got down to my pre-pregnancy weight. So thank you. Thank you. My daughter is 23.
We are Moms Unhinged, a nationally touring stand-up comedy show. Join us in our podcast as we explore everything from motherhood, midlife crisis, marriage, divorce, online dating, menopause, and other things that irritate us. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Moms Unhinged, the podcast. I'm your host, Andrea, and I am here with the wonderful, the fabulous Julie Dre, calling in from Oklahoma.
Hola. Hello.
Yes. And Julie has been amazing. She's been on tons of Moms Unhinged shows. She performs all over the country, does a lot in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and just is a just wonderful person, if I'm just going to say that.
Thank you. And I'm happy to be part of Moms Unhinged and be able to connect with, so many female comics and, of course, the audiences, which are predominantly female, of course.
Yeah.
It's just nice to be able to connect with so many women at one time when we do those shows.
I know. It's so fun. It
is.
The shows are just fabulous. So Julie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your comedy journey? How did you get into comedy? I always just love to find out people's stories here.
It's, ever since, I'll tell you how I found what stand-up comedy was, and this is really going to age me. I couldn't find no, it is. I couldn't find anything to watch when I was probably 11-ish or 12, too young, but anyways. Yeah. So we had those things like the cable box where you could zip the dial along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Did you have a cable box? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we weren't rich enough for cable, but yeah.
Okay.
I friends had them.
So we had the cable box and I couldn't find anything and I got so mad and I took the dial and I went zip like that. And it landed on channel 2, which was HBO. And I heard this guy screaming, and I'm like, what is he screaming at? And it was Sam Kinison doing his, oh. And I'm like, what is he doing? I'd never even heard of stand-up. I didn't know. And I watched it, and I was like, I don't understand what he's doing. I can still remember going, he's just talking to people? Like, what? And then after it sunk in, I was like, let me watch that again, even though I shouldn't have been watching Sam Kinison at 11 or 12. Oh, my gosh. But I was completely unsupervised as a child, so I watched it again, and it sunk again because I was so young. And then after a couple days, I was like, oh, he's talking about things that would normally be taboo or bad things that happen and making them funny. And I'm like, that's amazing. And then I just started watching all the stand-up, and I grew up watching, they had Ladies of the Night, which was like Rita Rudner, Ellen DeGeneres, Judy Tenuta, I said that wrong, and Paula Poundstone. Yeah. Those 4 were like my idols growing up. I loved all 4 of them, especially like Paula and Rita. I just started watching stand-up nonstop. It was and it wasn't available then like it is now. You could turn on and watch a million comics. So when you were watching it, it was going to be real special. And I just really absorbed it and I loved it. And I was like, I have to do that. But it didn't happen for me when I was young. And I can remember I headlined a show last August, and a lot of my high school friends were there, and they said that it was amazing because they were like, do you remember when you were in school and you would do full stand-up routines of people you'd watched on HBO? And I was like, not really, but I believe it. And they're like, yeah, you used to do the entire, you'd watch it so many times, you could do the entire set and do stand-up for us. So they were like, it's really amazing to see you as a child, younger, and then you're an adult now and you're actually doing it. They were like, it's really awesome. And so it meant a lot that they were there to support me and that they remembered that. So it was pretty cool. Full circle moment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that so
Yeah.
much. So you watched all that, you absorbed it all, and then you didn't actually start doing stand up till later.
Right. It was a week before 2 weeks before my 39th birthday. And I'd always wanted, like, I had tried to do stand up. It was probably 2008 or 9. I had a set written down. And then the night I was going to go, something happened and I couldn't make it. So I was like, forget it. It's probably stupid anyways. I had, she's going to kill me, but I had on my computer, they were doing a Nickelodeon's Funniest Mom in America contest. And I'd never done stand up, but I had it up. And my daughter, she was young. She was probably, I don't know, 7, 8. She goes, were you going to do this? And I go, yeah. And she goes, well, you're just going to embarrass yourself. And
Oh, girls.
I know. So I was like, this is stupid. You know, I was kind of like, this is stupid. So my kids were young. My kids were too young for me to dedicate time to it. I had a lot of things going on anyway. So I was like, it's just, I could feel it. I was like, I wanted to do it, but I could just feel it wasn't the right time. And then, you know, I was kind of like, yeah, that probably is stupid. You know, like I'm a mom, like time has passed, you know, what am I doing? So, but I started 2 weeks before my 39th birthday because it actually came from like the worst, like I was the most unhappy I'd ever been in my life through a number of things. And I remember going, while my life is a complete pile of whatever, let me just go ahead. This is what I said. I said, I'm going to do stand up. I'm going to go to an open mic night. I'm going to do horrible. And I can forget that dream too. And I can just start from ground zero.
I can forget that dream too.
I know. That's what I said.
Oh my God.
Real positive beginnings.
Let's just stomp on all of my dreams at once.
That's what I said. Stand up was like the last dream on the shelf that I had. And I was like, let me just take it off the shelf and just put it into the fire so we could just get rid of everything at once.
Burn it to the ground.
We'll just burn it all to the ground. And it ended up working out, which was really funny. I'm like, everyone thinks it's going to be like this positive story. And I was like, no, I was literally at the lowest point in my life and decided to just go for broke and just say, forget it.
Yeah.
Forget it. And I think it worked because I really didn't care. Yeah. And I felt like I had nothing left to lose. And so I think the way that I went up on stage, I can't remember it because my adrenaline was so high.
Yeah,
but I think the way that I went up on stage was just so I don't care.
Yeah.
And so I don't, whatever
I don't
this
care.
is.
I'm not invested if you laugh. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it just worked to my advantage and it ended up going really well for a first timer. And then, seeing like that I actually did it and everyone responded well, I was like, and I haven't stopped since then. That was, over 10 years ago. So,
yeah. So what was the feeling like after getting off stage? You were going in thinking, this is going to suck. How did it feel coming off that stage?
I've never done drugs, but I have to imagine that's what drugs feels like. I'm serious. My feet didn't touch the ground for weeks. I was so happy. I was so excited. I was like, I really did it and it worked and I feel great. And it literally like sort of brought me back to life because for so long I was just in survival mode. I was going to work. I had 2 jobs. I was going to both jobs, coming home, cleaning, doing everything just to stay alive. I wasn't doing anything fun, wasn't doing anything for myself. I just ended another bad relationship. So so I was just kind of just dead inside. And that's kind of why I did it. I was like, let's just, it was the first time in a long, long time that I felt that much genuine happiness. Literally for weeks, I was just on cloud 9. I mean, nothing could ever, besides like, your, things with your children, but I'm saying outside of your children, it was the best feeling I'd ever had. And it was all me, like no one was up there with me. And it just felt amazing. So you're constantly trying to recapture that feeling from week to week to week. Because, you have great shows.
Some weeks...
like Moms Unhinged is like the feeling from those shows is so good and you're so high and you're like, okay, I need another one. I need another hit. I need another, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So now so this was right before your 39. How old were your kids at this point?
My son was like 19.
Okay.
Because I was a young mom. And so my daughter was almost 14. She would have been 14 that November.
Okay.
So she was kind of at the point where she was hanging out with her friends anyways.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
you
I
had a little more freedom. Yeah.
I definitely, of course, my son's, he's not hanging out with mom. She's starting to not hang out with mom. And so it just happened it all like happened at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's perfect. Now, we were talking just briefly before we hopped on about you doing things in reverse, and that kind of fits in with this. So most, like a lot of people, start stand-up when they're young. You started older. What else have you done in reverse?
I went to college I started college in my mid to late 20s. I was always the oldest one in all my classes, which is so funny because I was like, and I can remember one of my professors, he goes, well, are you going to come back next semester? And I was like, no, I think I'm going to quit. And he's like, why? You're a great student. And I said, well, they're all giving me crap about being old. Mind you, I was like 28 years old, which is not
28.
Old.
28 years, so you're ancient.
I know. No. So old. But a lot of these were kids that were like 18, 19.
Yeah.
They were, so, they saw me as old because I was always the oldest one in the class.
Yeah.
And he was like, he goes, he called me Miss Drake. He's like, Miss Drake, the time is going to pass by anyways. He goes, whether you don't go to college or whether you sit at home, he goes, the time is going to pass. He goes, why don't you make it count? He goes, because I can tell you this, you don't want to get to the end of your life and ruminate and like go, I wish I'd done all these things. He goes, so why not pass the time with the things you want to do? He goes, who cares what these people say? He's like, they're losers. That's what he told me.
They're losers.
That's what he said. He's like, the teacher said that. And he's like, what do you care? And he's like, how did these people have so much control over your life? He's like,
so
you're
true.
a single mom. You work. You have 2 kids. You're an A student. He goes, what do you care about some kid that still living in his mom's basement that is barely passing? He's like, forget it. He goes, just make the time count. So that was definitely, and then of course the most in reverse, I got pregnant at 17.
Yeah.
So started off with the family first and then, should have been college, then maybe stand up and then the child, but it all lived life in reverse.
So you have, that is just so interesting because you have young children and then you decide to dive into, and were you working also? And then you decide to dive into college too? How did you juggle all of that?
I don't know. My daughter was saying that, and I'm sure, you as a mom, that they're sort of hard on you when you're raising them. And then she said to me probably a few months ago, I don't know how you did it. This is really hard because she became a mom. There was one point I was working a full-time job, going to college, taking care of my kids. And at one point I was working 2 or 3 jobs and doing all of that. So I guess the answer is I didn't sleep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, I didn't sleep. There was nothing. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad.
Yeah.
And
homework and all of that. I can't, both homework for you and the kids, and that's crazy. Well,
it was crazy.
So you were, what was the decision to go back into school? Just because you didn't get a chance to, and you wanted to, get that, what was that like, just deciding with all that going on?
I can tell you exactly what happened is I wanted to move to Dallas and I applied at the Volvo call center, which would just be customer service. It was like $12 an hour. And this was before I had my daughter. And they turned me down because I didn't have a college degree. Now, mind you, I'm serious. Now, mind you, I'd already worked in a call center, from the time I, left home till that point in time, I'd worked in a call center. So I had the experience. I helped run a call center.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I ever want to get out of Oklahoma or really do well, I'm going to have to get a degree. Like, it was a reality check.
Right.
And there was a lot of other jobs that I didn't even apply to that said you have to have a college degree. Wow. And then I had my daughter. So I was like, college is going to have to wait. And then I waited a few years and went back, just part-time, just a few classes here and there, just to get started, just because I was like, if anything happens and I don't have a degree, I mean, if I need a degree to go make $12 an hour, you know what I mean? Like, I have to like ensure myself that I'm going to be fit for the workforce if anything happens.
Yeah.
So that's what pushed me to go back and get my degree, which to this day I've still never used. But and I joke about that on stage. But it's a great accomplishment to look at it.
Yeah.
And go, I did this, and I did this with a lot of bad circumstances, and I'm still proud of myself for getting it, and I'll still have it and know I can take it away. It actually made me a better, I don't know, employee. It just made me a better person in a lot of ways, and I am proud of it, but I still never released it.
Darn it. Well, that is quite common, actually. But I mean, people go and they end up doing something totally different. Now, I mean, but I think it also helps with just like your esteem as a person, and just knowing like, hey, it builds resilience. It builds like just organizational skills that
yes,
all of that come into play too. And I think that's why some people require it, even if you've been doing it. It's silly that you would been doing that job and they wouldn't even just a piece of paper, but at the same time it's so
but it is good to have, and it taught me discipline is what it taught me. A lot of discipline.
Yeah, right. So you do the comedy set that like kind of gets you on the right trajectory. What was next after that? Like, did you start just, like you said, you've never quit, but like, did you just start going to as many things as you could go to? Because now you're doing this full time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a 10-year, that's pretty quick to go from very first set ever to full-time comedian in 10 years. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'll tell you what happened in Oklahoma City. Smaller market for comedy. It's bigger now. It was different 10 years ago, which is crazy because 10 years ago isn't that long. There was only two places you could get booked at. One was a comedy club, which is no longer operating. The owner's retired. And she had a really good, can't think of what the word is, I guess policy, that she wasn't going to watch you once or twice and just put you on stage. She had to watch you continually over a period of time to make sure that you would do different material, that you could work different crowds, etc. So I knew it was going to be like a year or more before she'd give me a chance. The other booking company, he, preferred to book his friends, which was fine. That's how a lot of comedy works. So what I did was I was like, well, I got to do something because what's here in Oklahoma City isn't going to work out for me right now. So I reached out to this booker. I'd seen his name on all of these flyers in Tulsa, which is about an hour and a half north of OKC. And I reached out to him. I said, hey, I've been doing comedy a couple months, been doing all the mics. I can't get on any shows here. Will you put me on something? And he goes, sure, but it's not going to pay. And I said, I don't care. I just need to get experience. And so I just started. That's really like how I got started. As I did his show, and then I did well, and then someone was there and invited me. He did like a new faces showcase, and they had bookers there, and I did the new faces showcase, and then I got booked from probably 5 or 6 different people there, and then it just grew from there. But it was because, like I had where I was like, well, I'm going to have to do something. Like, if I want to get booked, I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. I'm going to find a way. And so I had to drive an hour and a half, one way. There's tolls. It was expensive. but I was like, this is the only way I'm going to be able to break in any way. And I was, 5-6 months in, I was doing a show at the club in Tulsa, and I was doing out of state gigs and all that stuff just from going, well, I'm going to figure it out on my own then, because I'm just not going to sit here and just accept it. And that's really how I got started, and met a lot of great people I'm still friends with today. And that's just how it is. I was like,
we're doing it. We're doing
like
it with or without you guys.
I mean, that's like, Moms Unhinged, right?
I know, exactly. It sort of is the same idea, is that, we just are like, you know what, we're just going to make our own show. That's it.
Yeah.
Is we're going to, we're not going to wait around to be invited. We're just going to make our own show. So, yeah. And I think that great things can be born out of that, obviously, because you've just got, it's this drive to make it work, and then it works. So don't take no for an answer. So that's it.
I was like, well, there's more than one way to do this. And obviously this isn't going to work here. I'll figure out being a single mom or being a mom, there were so many times where I was like, well, it isn't going to work this way, but I have to make it work. So I would find another way. So it's just my resilience is being a single mom. Like, I will find a way to make it work. Like, that's going to happen.
That is awesome. I love that. One of the things I love to ask, so speaking of motherhood, one of the things I love to ask everyone who comes on the show is for an unhinged moment, either as a parent or with your parents, just so we can all feel a little less alone in this. We've all had our unhinged moments. So what's something that has not gone quite right?
I don't know if this qualifies, but this is the first one that popped in my brain. And when everyone hears it, they're like, what is wrong with you? But, I had, obviously, raising my kids on my own, I had a lot of financial difficulties. And sometimes I would have to figure things out because I'm like, we can't go without. And I remember how horrified my children were because, so embarrassing, our vacuum broke.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't have enough money for a new vacuum. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And my neighbor who I could have borrowed it from, she wasn't home. I don't know where she was. And I was like, well, I have to vacuum. Like it's gross. So I came up with the great idea. I went to Walmart and I wrote a check for a vacuum. And I went home and I vacuumed. And then I took the vacuum back the same day, and I lied and said it didn't work.
Oh my God. I'm sure you're not the only one who's done something like this. I used to have a friend who would wear dresses and she would never cut the tags off, and then she'd return them. I'm like, oh my goodness.
I have done that. I will tell you. I have done that many times where I'm like, okay, I need a nice dress. I'm not going to wear it once. So I would do that too. But my kids were like, you really bought a vacuum to return it? And I'm like, wow, how was I going to get the floor clean? And they were like, there's something wrong with you. Like, truly.
Well, it's got to be hard, I mean, as a single mother, young, that's the other thing. When you're young, you're just not making a lot of money. And kids are so expensive. Mm-hmm. I mean, they really are. And of course, you're probably prioritizing anything that they need, vacuums way down on the bottom of the list. So,
it would always go bills, food, and then whatever the kids needed.
Yeah.
And then whatever's left is whatever's left, which would not ever be a lot. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were working in a call center, and then so what were you doing when your kids were young? Like, what were some of the things you were doing? Because, I mean, single moms too, that's another hard thing, is that you've got to work at a job that pays enough to pay for whatever daycare you might need,
Mm-hmm. As far as daycare, I did get assistance with that, thankfully. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I was lucky enough that I had a job where I got off at 4:00. So made the mornings rough. But, like
Yeah.
when my son would come home from school, I would be there, so he wouldn't have to be in school all day, then with a sitter
Yeah.
all night, which I wouldn't have liked.
Yeah.
So I'm very, even though it didn't pay a lot of money, I mean, it paid the bills. We never starved.
Yeah.
It just made it rough, but I was also there at night, which I felt like
Yeah.
was the most important thing.
Yeah. That's so important.
Yeah. Which is also why I started comedy later, because I was like, everyone's situation's different. I'm not judging, but I didn't have any family or anyone to help me. So I was like, there's no way I can leave him in school all day and then leave him with a sitter at night, every night, while I'm out at bars trying to figure out, a joke. So
Yeah. I started comedy later too, and it is more like I was like, I just want to be there. The time is so precious, and you can't. Yeah, I mean, sometimes everyone's situation is different, but I'm sure that was just such a blessing to be able to be there with your kids for that time, and really have that quality time with them. Until then, they're teenagers and they don't want to see you. So
Exactly.
it's a perfect time to start comedy.
Well, I had a comedian friend who was struggling with being a dad and comedy, and I said, "Look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to tell you my opinion as someone, who's lived that." And I said, "Kids are only kids one time." I said, "They're only going to be 8 once, 9 once, 10 once, and you can never replicate those experiences." And I said, "Comedy will always be there. It's always going to be there." And I said, and the further you go in life, the more you have to talk about. And I said, you will never regret being there for your kids. You are going to regret missing things with your children, especially if he only has one. And I said, my advice to you as a parent, knowing that I never missed out on a single thing with my kids and I don't regret it, pick your kid,
Yeah.
You can come back. Comedy, I swear comedy will be there. It's not going anywhere. It's never going to go away.
Yeah.
But you're really going to regret. Your kid's going to be a teenager shortly, and she's not going to want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, wait a minute, I didn't get to see her for the past 5 or 6 years. And you're probably going to feel guilty about it. So I said, I joked with him. I said, I know I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I just told you what to do. But I said, you'll never regret being there for your children.
Yeah.
And I don't regret waiting. I don't regret, because I didn't miss a single thing with my kids. I could tell you everything that they did. I was there for every play, every single thing. And I'm glad I was. I mean, they knew that if there was a play or something that I was going to be there. It wasn't even a question. And I think that does a lot for your kids' self-esteem and value. And I think that it just does a lot for them in those formative years. So
Yeah. For sure. It's so, and people used to always tell me like, oh, it goes so fast. And it's really hard to believe that when you're exhausted and it's like, are you sure it goes fast? Because this feels real slow,
I know.
But looking back, it really is. It's so true. It feels like a blink of an eye at this point, now that they're in their 20s. And I'm like, wow, man. But yeah, it is. That's great advice that you gave him. And hopefully he takes it to heart and spends time. And I think I'm glad that dads are stepping in a little bit more to that role. I think it's been traditionally, that they're out and about more. So it's good. Yeah. Well, this has been just so much fun. Why don't you let people know where they can find you online, follow you and all that stuff. And if you have anything special to mention, feel free.
Oh, I'm on Instagram. Gosh, it's Julie Comedy, and TikTok is Julie Comedy, and then the number 1. And then of just Facebook is just Julie Drake. So
yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that's
and
where
we'll put those show links in the show notes so people can follow you, connect with you, all that stuff. And we're so excited to keep touring with Moms Unhinged and see you again sometime.
Yes, and thank you for the brainchild of Moms Unhinged. It's amazing. If you haven't seen a show, you have to see a show because it's really it's always a phenomenal night, and I look forward to them a lot. So thank you for that brainchild and including me in it.
Yeah, thanks, Julie.
All right, thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and make sure you subscribe, share, and follow us on the socials to get more comedy clips.